Hello again, my name is Yara and I'm a psychic medium from Argentina, and I have been an exorcist of buildings and people for over a decade already. So this is where I take all my information from, my experiences, my training, and everything that I have researched and studied during these years in my field. So if you're interested in all of this content, please subscribe to my channel for more astrology, paranormal, demon, ghosts, light and evil, aliens, or whatever the things that people just don't want to talk about, but I do. Today we're going to talk about ghosts, but specifically ghosts of people. I'm not going to talk about demons, entities, angels. No, spirits of people that have actually lived here on earth and are in a transition to go to the next life, to the light, or whatever it is that you want to call them. The first thing that I would like to clarify is the fact that we never stop existing. Like, there's nothing about our being that just completely stops being. Our consciousness just keeps on. It is the body that we shed, but the consciousness keeps on living. When you die, you're still the same person. In the case of ghosts, what happens is that usually they had either a very sudden death, unexpected, or traumatic, and the soul was really hoping not to die. What happens in that situation, since it's so traumatic, is that the consciousness of the soul really wants to hang on to life. It wants to hang on to materiality. It has a lot of pending business, things that they didn't finish, things that they want to finish. They have their people who come and look for them, who try to like call their attention. But when you are like this, focused on what you want, what you need, and you're in such a desperate state, for example, of escaping, of going back, or of talking to your loved ones, then you don't care about the light. Like, in that moment, you just want to go back to your body immediately. It is important for that soul to realize what just happened and what is supposed to happen now. But unfortunately, that is not the case, especially for people who are really attached to the material. A person whose money was everything, like its possessions was everything, its house was everything, unwilling to change. Their family had control over their loved ones and wants to keep on having that control. There are a lot of reasons why souls choose to stay, to just keep on interacting with the living world. And sometimes they're so in denial, just as material people, that they even themselves don't realize that they're dead and don't even care about the signs, the red flags of the situation. They just want to get their business done here. It could take a very short period of time, like saying goodbye, for example, or it could take longer, like, I'm never gonna leave my house. As a medium, I have always encountered people who ask their houses to be cleaned, and I heard them say, it doesn't matter that much to me. It doesn't bother me. It's okay if he wants to be here, living at the same time as us, like, he's not doing anything wrong. I always say, like, yeah, okay, it's fine, but it's not healthy, okay? Because the soul has to move on. It has to go to the light, reunite with its family and everything. Some soul stays shorter periods. So, for example, to say goodbye, they just in a couple of minutes or immediately go visit their loved ones to say something, to kind of hint. And that's usually what happens when people like dream about people who have passed away. It's actually the soul's going to visit them and telling them, hey, I'm fine, I'm okay. I just wanted to let you know that I'll be gone, but I'm never really gone. What happens, like, if after years I get a visit from my loved one, does it mean that it has been stuck in the astral ever since? And the answer is no. Your loved one has probably passed on if you feel like that's what happened, but from the beyond, from the light, that consciousness can always come back to give you a message or to contact you, but just like a brief visit or brief interaction, not like a haunting kind of situation. During the morning, the grief of the loved ones, they stay for a while, like for a period of time, maybe like a year, some months. They stay with them to take care of them, to support them, to make sure that they can go through with ease in this transition. So after the period that consciousness decides to stay to support their loved ones, they should be passing on. And that's the moment when a person just lets go of the grief and can start living again more normally, let's say, even though of course it is never the same. The feeling is like losing a huge weight off our shoulders and just moving on and be like, okay, like I finally accepted it. And that's like a very good sign that the soul has passed on into the light, to heaven. But when there is a huge amount of grief, of pain, of not letting go from the family part or from the loved ones, from their friends, and they're still holding on to the idea of this person, sometimes that can be very detrimental for the soul that wants to pass on, but it can't, because you're seeing all your people suffer for you and you just want to stay there for them. So you do what you can, because that's the agreement of your guys' soul. I'm not trying to guilt trip you into not mourning your loved ones, but definitely our society nowadays, that we fear death so much, has made it much more difficult and suffering the whole process of letting go of loved ones. Back in the day, in the ancient cultures, death was only a transition. It was nothing traumatic or like a bad kind of situation for the soul. So it was very much accepted to just let it go. The grief process was considered and understood by all of the tribe, and it was a very huge thing that everyone was helping to move on, and constantly reinforcing this idea that the person is doing better now, so that the soul can go more freely, knowing that everyone has a support system in the material. That's the part of the ghosts that usually don't hurt. They just linger around. We will go now to some residue ghosts, and then we will go to the ghosts that can hurt. So the residue ghost is not like there's some residue, but actually they're kind of stuck. But it doesn't mean that it is their consciousness that is stuck there. Sometimes it's like an energy that is kind of lingering around. Our material world can definitely absorb energies from situations. So that's why houses have this like weird energy around, or objects are cursed or blessed, or even the clothes or the property of the deceased has their energy. So definitely we could be seeing sometimes what the paranormal investigators call residual energy, even though every energy is intelligent, let's say. The residual energy is so focused on just existing that it sees no need to interact necessarily. So this is the case of what happens when people see a ghost kind of like repeating itself, like in a loop in a place over and over again, or they just have like this feeling of smells, of thoughts even that the person had, screams. Those are things that are kind of like in loop, in just like the material things that have absorbed them, the walls, the houses, the area. But it doesn't mean that they necessarily see you. Sometimes we connect because we have something in common in that moment, and for a millisecond you can see them, but immediately your rational mind blocks it, trying to find out every single logical explanation to what you saw, and so your brain cannot process it anymore. And that's why when you see a ghost, it's usually a very sudden thing. If you see a ghost and it has been standing there for more than 2 seconds, that ghost was seeing you and you were seeing him, and it was trying to communicate. Okay, so now that having been covered, we will go to the ghost that can hurt. And this hurt word is very strong. I don't want you to go back to your home and think, oh, like the ghost can hurt me. Unfortunately, they can, because they can definitely interact with the material world, but that doesn't mean that it's so easy. It doesn't mean that it happens often, and it doesn't mean that it won't take a long time until that happens. You will definitely be seeing some red flags way before that even happens. So usually, like, the most common thing that I have encountered with spirits wanting to hurt people was because they were interfering with their plans of staying here in the material world. So this means either you live in their house, you're using their clothes, you're dating their daughter, or you're trying to cleanse the house from them. Also, a very common thing that I have always dealt with, and it's the number one cause for exorcisms that I have performed, is that the family members stay to control their loved one's life. Your grandmother just didn't like you and didn't want you to get pregnant, and didn't want you to marry this guy, and didn't want you to go move to another country. So usually the ghost stays stuck to you in a situation that I call a possession. A possession is not necessarily like in the movies. Definitely is way more subtle, and I can tell you like with almost certainty that at least 90% of the people on earth are possessed to a certain extent. It is a very common phenomena, and it doesn't necessarily have to be people from your family or people that you knew. Sometimes it's just energies that we catch in a cemetery, it would catch in a haunted house, that we catch in someone else's house. In this situation, for example, that you catch a spirit that you don't know, it's because the spirit is so desperate to be alive that it will kind of like hang on to your body like a leech, and your personality will start to shift a little bit towards the personality of the spirit. So you will start having this intrusive thoughts that you never had, or this personality changes. Like, I've had a lot of people who have come and were like, I don't recognize myself anymore, or he changed from one moment to another. He was like another person. He was never the guy again that I met 10 years ago. It's a very strong indication that there's some interference with the base personality of the person. Most serial killers, most very sudden killers or hurters or whatever, are usually possessed. The astral is always interacting with the material. Just the fact that we don't see it with our eyes doesn't mean that we cannot see the consequences of it. It also causes a lot of the S word, the self-damaging situations, because when you are haunted and we're under a lot of pressure from another personality, you start developing personality disorders, mental health issues, and that of course can very slowly but consistently take you to a moment where you don't recognize yourself anymore. So now that I have covered like the three main types, the positive, your loved ones saying goodbye or taking care of you during your mourning, the residual energies who just like completely ignore you, and the third type, which is spirits that don't want you in their house, that can interact with the material and actually make you really scared. Now the question is, what should I do? Well, ghosts are not that complicated, especially because we know that they have a specific goal. We know how they think. As above, so below. The spirits think like us because they are still people. They're still thinking in the same ways as we do. So we can understand how to talk to them, exactly like we would talk to someone who breaks in your house, which is being very firm, staying grounded, and saying like, leave my house. That's the first thing. There are different types of like difficulty into everything. There are stronger spirits who are more attached to the material. There are spirits that are actually like having help from other spirits. Remember that the astral is a world by itself, okay? So the spirits in there communicate with each other, and also sometimes with some entities. Spirits like to go in gangs sometimes, mostly do work alone, but there are a lot of situations where there is several spirits in a certain place, and also other kinds of entities. So there is a hierarchy situation there where the strongest spirits controls what the others do. That's a very normal thing that happens usually in the most haunted places on earth. there is usually a demonic presence there who is kind of like the boss, or some kind of spirit that has evolved into being kind of like an egregore entity because of the amount of power that they have. And then usually there are spirits who serve that energy, usually women or children, that tell you, oh, he's here or something, or I cannot talk right now because, you know, he's coming into, or he doesn't want me to talk to you. I have heard that situation like a lot, and unfortunately that's a very complicated situation to get rid of, because you cannot free the weaker spirits that easily. You have to deal with the boss first and then go for the ones that were under his control, or when you get rid of the boss, the other ones just move on. That's usually how it goes. So how do we get rid of them? It is true that when you pay a lot of attention to something, you just attract more of it. That's just the law of the universe in every sense, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't address the situation. Every ghost has an issue that needs to be helped. Of course, the urgencies are just different. Fear is like the worst thing that you can do, because fear is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. Like, where whatever you fear, your whole attention is there, your whole energy is there. That's just a part of our survival mechanism. We have to run away from the predator, so you will not be able to think about anything else but the predator while you are in fear. That is completely unaligned with being in the light and being calm and peaceful, which is what we want to attract in that situation. If you give in to fear, the best thing that you can do is pray to whatever you believe in for help, and try to think about those light beings instead of this situation that you're in right now. Focus on that energy, on that love. Help them, like ask for them to enlighten you, to take care of you, to center you in your energy first, to get rid of the fear, and then we target the ghost. You can definitely talk to a ghost, like saying, look, man, I understand what you're going through. It must suck and I want to help, but don't mess with me. This is the energy that we're kind of like going through. You have to be very sure of yourself and like establish your boundaries and your limits. Like, okay, I will do everything that I can to help you, but don't mess with me. Don't mess with me. Don't mess with my family. Okay? Like, I'll find a way to help you. Just stay away from us. Be very assertive in your energy, in your light, in your strength. This is your house. This is your things. My house is light and love and everything positive, and you have no place here. As above, so below. You are dealing with people when you're dealing with spirits. I just want to make like a little disclaimer here. The ghost will retaliate, and that's what I want you to understand. Like, if you are not ready for the answer, don't ask the questions. And this takes me to a very important point. Do not, and I repeat, do not use any kind of device to talk to spirits. Device, ritual, or anything that could make them come closer to you. Positively, do not use the Ouija board, the pencil ritual, a cup, tarot cards. Do not use candles. Do not use a mirror, for God's sake. You are inviting things and making them worse. Do not use black magic, and do not do stupid things without knowing what you're doing, because the consequences can be absolutely devastating. The worst thing that you can do with a spirit or an entity is to give them permission to get in. And when you are using those kind of devices, you're basically begging them to come and haunt you, whatever, because you don't know what it is. You don't know what will come through. You are the prey in the situation. You are the weaker link. You are the one that is not aware and is not in contact with their spirituality. And I mean it in general, because of course, if you are a person who does this for a living, then absolutely I trust that you know what to do. But if you're just a common person who is learning about this, I tell you, you have no idea of how these things work. So don't put yourself in a situation to be further on hurt by these things that are much, much, much more common than when people think or want to think. And if you think of like, what is the proof of all of this? There is a lot of proof, and there will never be enough proof for people, okay? I can record right now a video of a ghost in front of me, and still a lot of people will say it's fake. This is what happens with a lot of things that are online nowadays. A lot of them are true 100%, and a lot of them are fake for sure. But the fact that you can just basically call anything fake nowadays, it's what's going to determine that there will never be enough proof. But you ask anyone around you, people that you respect, people that you hear their opinions, that you know that they will never lie to you, and they all have a ghost story. They all do. The paranormal lives with us, and the spirits of our people around you definitely have made themselves known. You just have to learn how to speak their language to understand what are the signs that you have been asking for, what the signs that they have been sending to you. There is always and has always been ghost stories and people who are very sane, not liars, that have gone through these things. And I'm sure you've had your own share of paranormal experiences, so if you want to share them in the comments, you are absolutely welcome. If you want to know anything else about these topics and you have any questions that you want to leave that you want me to answer maybe in future videos, absolutely do. So have a great day. Stay strong, my friends, and stay focused on the things that you want to experience, and always stay in the light.